All right. All right, we are recording, so just a couple of housekeeping items. Please mute yourself when you're not speaking, just to minimize some background noise. If you have any questions, you can use the hand raise button at the bottom of your screen if you're on a computer or phone or tablet. Or you can use the chat feature, which is also at the bottom right of your screen. This call is being recorded and will be available on the members only side of the Colorado PGA website in case you'd like to reference the content in the future or share it with someone else on your staff. So this time it's my pleasure to introduce Jeramy Curry, who's the PGA Director of Instruction at Pinehurst Country Club. He's been a PGA member since 2018 and has been involved with the Colorado PGA since 2012. A couple of things about Jeramy's presentation today. He's asked for this to be an incredibly open forum. So if you have any questions, a specific topic or a specific challenge that you'd like to discuss or like him to touch on, please go ahead and drop them in the chat to get us started or at any time throughout his presentation. And during his presentation, you can also ask a question by using, again, the hand raise or the chat feature at any time. He's very open to dialogue today. So take it away, Jeramy.
Thanks, Holly. Yeah, guys and gals, thanks for being here. Like Holly said, feel free if you want to drop chats in the comment or at any point throughout. This is open forum. If you want to blurt something out and you got a question about anything that we're talking about or anything that you want further insight on or anything like that, just let me know, and we'll kind of dive into how to make better students, how to make better golfers, how to help people enjoy this game a little bit more. So I'll give you a little background about myself. Like Holly said, I'm the Director of Instruction here at Pinehurst Country Club. Been here, this is my third season now. I was at the Links Golf Course in Highlands Ranch for about 8 years before that. And Ben Tremaine, who's on this call, got me back into golf about 2012 up at Red Rocks. It's where I kind of fell in love with the game and decided to make this a career. And yeah, been loving it ever since. And so, you know, for me, teaching is something that I love to do. It's not just golf. I've taught skiing and snowboarding in the past. Really, I love helping people get better at things that I love to do. And so that just kind of found itself naturally in golf when I got back into it. And so a part of the structure here today is I'm going to run you through how I go through a lesson, how I kind of format things, how I like to start a lesson, how I tend to make swing changes throughout. And then like the info page said, how can we add value to what we do as golf instructors, as PGA professionals for our students. So before we get into anything too specific, does anybody have any questions, any issues that they've been dealing with certain students or swings or philosophies or anything like that? Anybody want to throw something out?
I'll throw something out, Jeremy.
Thanks, Scott.
When you're dealing when you're dealing with people from just all kinds of athletic backgrounds, some in shape, some out of shape, do you have any like non-negotiables that you sort of like, you must do this in every single golf swing, or do you find everything to be just so unique and individual?
That's a great question. One of the things, I think if you talk to most of my students, they'd say that the non-negotiable that I try to get to is a finish position. You know, and I'm always going to ask if they have physical limitations that for some reason or another, they can't get to their left side and they can't pivot their back foot and they can't necessarily stay balanced in a finish position. And most people are physically able to do that. But a lot of times they just haven't practiced their balance enough to get there. And so that's always something that I'm striving for. A lot of times I teach more on the through side of the swing than I do on the backswing side of the swing, because that's where the target is, right? And so that's kind of where a lot of my teaching philosophies stem from, is can I get you into a finish position, and kind of dissecting things backwards, almost rewinding from a good finish, because with anybody that you see hit a good golf shot, 99% of the time, they've got a good finish position, right? And so if I can get you to that spot, again, that's on the goal side of the swing. That's always something that I'm striving for. And I tell people a lot that my philosophies come from longevity. Like, I want to play this game as long as I possibly can. I want you to play it as long as you possibly can. I want my students to play it as long as they can. And I think things start to break down when we don't get through the shot. If I see a player whose back foot is stuck to the ground, there's so much tension on the body as you're trying to get through a golf shot. You're almost slamming on the brakes of your golf swing if you're not pivoting your body and turning through the shot and getting to that lead side, getting to that finish position. So if I can get a player through the ball, if I can get you to find some balance, if I can get your back foot to pivot and rotate a little bit, now you're taking pressure off of your body and making the swing easier. And again, to me, that means that you're going to be able to play the game longer. And that's always what I'm striving for. I want them to understand where my philosophies stem from, and it's from that longevity aspect. So that's probably the number one, like, non-negotiable. I call them prerequisites to a good golf swing, is can I get there? And then the rebuttal I always get to that is, well, I'm, say you get an older student and they say, well, I'm old, my balance is bad. And I like to have discussions with people and, just try to challenge things. And so I don't think there's a direct correlation between age and bad balance. What there is a direct correlation between time and bad balance. What I mean by that is I know 80-year-old people that have fantastic balance, that are incredibly flexible, but it's because they practice it on a daily basis. The only reason we stop getting more flexible, the only reason our balance starts to deteriorate is when we don't practice it. And so if you can get somebody to buy into that, and I ask them for 60 seconds, I say, can you give me 60 seconds out of your day? What is it? 83,400 seconds in a day. I say, can you give me 60 seconds to start to practice your balance? And how do you do that? Just stand on one foot. Do it by your couch in case you fall over, stand on one foot and then switch and stand on the other foot. And then that's kind of your starting point. And then I say, okay, if you want to ramp it up a little bit, try to balance with your eyes closed. It's really hard. Your eyes have balancing mechanisms inside of them, and it's really hard to balance with your eyes closed. And so if I can get somebody to start to practice their balance, now I know that they're going to hopefully get to their finish position a little bit better, which in my opinion is where good golf shots kind of stem from. So I hope that answers your question, Darren. Anybody else? Hey, Sean, what's going on, man? Scott's hand is up. You are on mute, Scott. There you go. I can't hear you. Bummer. Maybe throw it in the comment. So let's talk a little bit about kind of staying on topic here. How do you start a golf lesson? So for me, a golf lesson starts before I get to the range tee. I was taught something when I was teaching ski school. They do this drill with you where you go up the ski lift with an instructor and you have to watch somebody come down the run. And you've got maybe 5 or 10 seconds to assess what's going on with their skiing ability as they pass underneath you. And then you have to tell the instructor what things you would do or change about that person's skiing ability. And so I take that to golf. And if I've been fortunate that everywhere I've taught golf, I can see the range tee from the pro shop. So a lot of times I'll be watching a golf swing from the pro shop, or even, if I can't see that person or whatever, even as I'm walking up or driving up to the range tee, I'm trying to see what I'm going to assess before I even get there. So for me, starting a session begins before I even, start talking to that person. I want to kind of have an idea in my head of what I'm going to be addressing with that person, just to kind of have a jumping off point. And then again, lessons start before that first shot. A lot of times if you get an email from somebody and they're like, hey, you set up a lesson for 2 weeks out or whatever it is, well, hopefully they're going to be going to the range before that and getting ready for, the session that they're going to have with you. And so I'll give them the things that I'm going to be looking for when they come to see me. So if I've got somebody coming out in 2 weeks, I can say, hey, these are the prerequisites that I'm going to be looking for first and foremost. If you can work on these things over the next couple of weeks, then at least we'll have a good base, a good foundation to kind of build from. And that word foundation is something I use a lot. I'm trying to build a player's foundation, their fundamentals, right? I think that the best players, they just do the fundamentals better than everybody else. They don't necessarily do anything too crazy. I mean, obviously, there's some freak athletes out there, but if you can get somebody to understand what their fundamentals need to be, then you've given them more than just one lesson. You've given them that foundation of information that they can go back to when they're struggling, and they can go back to, what are those? It's, do you have a good solid grip on the club? You go back to that PGA, posture, grip, alignment. It's pretty cliche, but that's really the best players really work on those things more than anything else. You hear Scotty Scheffler say it all the time. What's he work on? He works on his grip. He works on his alignment. And I think there's so much information out there. There's so many ways to overcomplicate the game. But if we can try to keep it simple, is what I try to do with my students. And I give them those fundamentals, that foundation, those prerequisites to a good golf swing. And if they can work on those things when they're not with me, then I know that when they are with me, we can kind of build on that a little bit better. Scott, you had a question. Are we back up here? Let's see. I see you're muted. Okay, there we go. Try it again. Dang, we can't hear you, Scott. Just throw your question in the comment, and I'll read it here in a little bit. All right. Sorry about that. Anybody else? Questions? Comments?
Yeah, I teach a lot of beginners, a lot of older people too.
Yep.
And I seem to struggle with their strength and their backswing. What tips do you have for that?
Great question, Rick. Thanks, man. Strength is tough, right? And you try to get people to understand that it's not necessarily strength. It's more speed. And like, can I get you to swing the club any faster? Can we get the club moving a little bit more? And I'm not necessarily concerned with their backswing so much. I'm more concerned with how they get through the ball. Again, if there's pieces, and I'll show you guys a video here in a minute of how I kind of break down a swing. But if there's pieces of somebody's backswing that need to be addressed, I will always address that. But I'm going to be trying to get a player to move through the ball first and foremost. I think a lot of times we get too wrapped up with what's going on in the backswing, what's going on in the takeaway. And at the end of the day, that's not the target side of the swing, right? And so I use a lot of analogies, like throwing a Frisbee is one that I go to a lot. I say, if I gave you a Frisbee, you wouldn't think anything about back here. You would just go and try to throw it on this side. And so I'm trying to get players to commit more to the through side of the swing is a way that I've found success in getting those older players to get a little bit more distance. Sometimes I'll use, we've got these little things on our range tee. Hold on real quick. I like props. We've got, these aren't on our range tee, but like picture something like this, and I'll put a player's back foot on here and get them to think like they're a pitcher on a pitcher's mound. And can I get you to push off and move towards the target? Because then they're going to use the ground a little bit better. They might not even know how, like what that means to use the ground, but I'll put their back foot on something that's elevated like that and give them a support to move towards the target. So yeah, like I said, I'm not necessarily concerned so much with what's going on in the backswing as far as speed goes, because I can take the club back real slow, and then can we get the club moving as we're going towards the target? And so, that's where I might use like a prop, like not a speed stick, but they've got those click sticks now. Or I just found this one on Amazon. I'll see if I can have Holly like share it after this or something, or send it to you guys. But it's just one of those grip trainer things. It's got a little golf ball on the end, and it clicks. It releases as you swing through. And so getting somebody to feel like, where do I want more speed? It's not back here. It's going through the ball. That's good. I'll use like an alignment stick, have them swing an alignment stick and try to get them whipping. Or like, if you don't have an alignment stick, turn the driver upside down and try to get that whoosh on this side, on the through side of the swing, just to get them to understand like where speed comes from and where we need speed the most in the golf swing, which is going through the ball. Because I think if we get them to focus too much on speed too early, they'll tend to like shift or sway, and then they'll actually like be going the opposite and kind of lose speed as they go away from the ball. So I want them to focus more on the through side, getting speed at and through the golf ball. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. Anytime, Rick. Anybody else? Questions before we move on? I can't see these. Let's see. Cool. Yeah, the chat's open. If Ben Tremaine raised his hand. Go ahead, Ben Tremaine.
Hey, can you hear me all right? I'm driving right now.
Ben, I can hear you great.
Okay,
Thanks
great.
for being here.
Yeah, thanks for hosting, Jeremy. So just kind of curious, as you know, we chat quite a bit. Do you have like a particular type of lesson that you enjoy teaching the most, or vice versa, one that it's not quite, your money maker or something that you're the most comfortable with? Just asking because I've been at a course the last 7 years without a driving range, so I'm getting back in teaching a lot more full swings. And I just found, I was like, wow, I just have not done this in a while. And if there's anything that you do to, I don't know, maybe, you don't want to seem unconfident to a student, but just something that maybe that you do or have any ideas there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, it always goes back to, I like to read a lot of golf books, and I think if there's anybody out there that's, kind of newer in their golf career, or I don't know, trying to, maybe redefine how you teach the game or whatever, it's find your golf Bible, right? Like for me, my golf Bible is Harvey Pennick's Little Red Book. That is the book that I've read the most. It's the book I actually read first in my golf career. And it resonates with me because it matches my teaching philosophies. Harvey Pennick always tried to keep it simple. That's what I'm trying to do. I try not to overcomplicate things. So that's my teaching Bible. I've actually got one of his books here with me. It says, and if you play golf, you're my friend, right? So to Ben's question of like, what lesson do I like the most? There's a quote from, somebody in Harvey's forward. Who did his forward? Davis Love III did the forward for one of the iterations of Harvey's Little Red Book. And in there, the quote that stuck with me said that Harvey could teach anyone from a raw beginner to the best player in the world. And so I always took that to heart, and I wanted to be able to teach anyone from a raw beginner to the best player in the world. And, you know, so I don't mind teaching anyone. I think if I set that in my mind that like, oh gosh, so-and-so is coming out, that's not the style of lesson that I like to give, then I'm not going to have that confidence. And it's probably not going to resonate with them as well. And so I like teaching anyone and everyone. I honestly think I get the same joy from watching a college player that can hit it literally 400 yards, or ladies clinic that I gave yesterday where a gal was hitting heel shots and we got her, you know, striping them again. So, you know, and Ben, I think for you play enough golf and you practice your game enough. I would take those things to the lesson tee. And I think that that's such a positive when an instructor plays a lot of golf, because I think that you can relate to your students a little bit more. I'm not saying anything, you know, if people don't play a lot of golf, I think you can still be a great instructor, but I think that you can really relate to your students on a personal level if you play the game a lot. And so, and Ben, I know you play this game a ton. I love playing golf with you. And so, yeah, just take those personal experiences and what works for you, take those to the lesson tee, you know, and I don't think it's going to take you long to get more comfortable with teaching out at the range. I know you didn't have a range for a long time, and Rick and Sean, you guys are at Willis and you don't have a range. And I was actually thinking about that earlier because I saw you guys on the list, you know, of kind of like tips or things that I would do if I didn't have a driving range. And I still think that I would try to get somebody focused as much as I possibly can on the target or on the target side of the swing. Because I think it's the easiest way to mitigate swing thoughts. People ask me all the time, like, I've got too many swing thoughts. What do I do? And my number one answer is the easiest way to mitigate swing thoughts is to think about your target. Because I can tell when somebody's not focused on their target because their eyes are just down here at the golf ball and they're not looking out here. And in no other sport would you not be focused on your target. And golf is such a hard game because you're facing this way, trying to hit something that way, and your golf ball's right here. And so, you know, I try to get people as comfortable as they can to really focus on the target. The golf ball's not going to move. The golf ball's not going anywhere. So if you take your eyes off of that and you focus a little bit more out here, again, that ties in with my philosophies of like trying to get through the ball and trying to stick your finish. Is it comes from that goal of here's my target. What's out there? Again, if I gave you a Frisbee, you would just look out there and you try to throw it. And I think that's a good one too, because, you know, I ask people how often do they hit the person they're trying to throw the Frisbee at, and it's not very often. And so trying to manage expectation in golf that like, you're probably not going to hit your target very often. You know, it helps to manage those expectations, but the more you focus on your target, the quieter your mind can be. And I think people have way too many thoughts going through their mind. They think that they need to be so focused on certain swing thoughts. And I think really good players don't have as much of that. I think really good players are reactive to their target. I think that's what made Tiger Woods the player that he was. Because what did Tiger Woods talk about? He talked about how his dad taught him to play the game when he was 2 years old. And he said, play to the picture. Right. And so Tiger was always playing to the picture, and the picture was the target. He would literally take a picture of the target in his mind and then play to that. So he was always focused on the target. I think swing thoughts are okay for like doing practice on the driving range. But at the end of the day, when you're on the golf course, I want you focused on the target as much as you possibly can. And so I got off on a tangent there, but like Rick and Sean, you know, if I was you guys teaching, you know, in the bays that you have, I don't know if you guys do this, but I'd put up little like either duct tape, targets, rings. I'd be putting things on the net and seeing if I can get a player like hitting those targets. Even if they can't see the ball flight down range, if you can hit a target at 10 feet, well, that means that you can start the ball online. And we know how important it is to start the ball online, your start line. So if I can get you to focus on hitting a target in your start line, I think that has big implications downrange as well. Just something I was thinking about this morning as I was trying to prep for this. I was thinking about you guys in that situation there. And the nice thing about that is you guys have a short game area. And so you can get players to really focus on what's most important in golf, which is the short game. Yes, we need to get off the tee well, but from there, it's all about, can you get the ball in the hole, right? Can we chip and putt? And yeah, I'd just be spending as much time down there as I possibly could with somebody. I think it's a good excuse to actually get them off of the driving range. I think a lot of times people hit way too many golf balls on the range. And at the end of the day, the driving range is not the golf course, right? The golf course is a lot different than the driving range. The driving range is always flat. It's always a fairway lie. And you've got 500 golf balls right there in front of you to hit, or 100 golf balls, or a bucket, or whatever it is. And so you're going to hit, 27 irons in 5 minutes, where on the course you would only hit one shot in 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. And then you've got another shot with a different club. And so as we progress through, like, kind of how I structure my lessons, that's kind of the next key that I try to get players to, is what we call transfer practice. Is what you're doing here actually going to transfer to the golf course? And I think as I watch people on the driving range all day, I don't think very much of that practice transfers over to the golf course. Because after you've hit your 20th 7-iron, I would hope that you have a good rhythm for it, right? And so you're going to hit that, and you're going to see a good shot, and you're going to, okay, I got that. And then you're going to hit 20 of your next club, and you're going to get to figure it out. But you only get one chance on the golf course. And so if you're not practicing that way, I don't think you're actually practicing golf. You're just practicing golf swing, which is a completely different thing. Yes, it's one factor in the game of golf, but the game of golf is one shot at a time. So a lot of times what I try to do is I get people to play a golf course while they're on the range, right? Because now we can visualize different things. So I'll typically, if it's a player that's played for a while, I'll ask them what their favorite course is. Because then I can, not only can I relocate them to a different place, right? We've now transported to whatever their favorite golf course is. And so now the range time is even more special if you can get somebody to change their environment, and think about a course. And we say, okay, we're going to hit the first tee shot. You know what that shot is like. Okay, we're going to hit that shot, and then we're going to switch clubs, and we're going to hit what you think the approach shot would be. And then we're going to go and we're going to play the second hole. And then we're going to go and we're going to play the third hole. And I'm always amazed that, I'll get somebody that's played golf for a long time, and I'll get them to practice like that. And I'll ask them if they've ever practiced like that. And they say no. And I'm like, okay, so for 40 years, you've never practiced the game of golf. And so I love getting somebody to start to think a little bit differently about their practice time, and how to make it more effective, which is transfer practice how you play. And that also, it's going to put a minute amount of pressure on them, and any bit of pressure you can put into your practice is very productive. There's some putting drills that I use that incorporate pressure. If you can incorporate pressure in your practice, that transfers, because we know that we feel pressure when we're on the course, but when you're on the range with a whole bucket of balls, you feel no pressure. So you're not actually practicing the way that you play. There's a coach down in Florida. I can't remember his name, but he makes his players do burpees and push-ups and jumping jacks and stuff, and then hit a shot, because he wants to get them in an elevated heart rate like they would be on the golf course to then hit the shot. I think that's kind of a pretty unique way to do it. Okay, we got Scott's comment here. Let's see, 2 things. How much are you embracing PGA coach? And how is Bill Loeffler and how much influence did he have on you? Wow. First question, PGA coach, I don't use it a ton, to be honest. I'm at a private facility where I just can't, take on too many outside students. I do still get some blurps every once in a while. And like, even if I can't work with a student, I'll try to point them in the right direction. I'll try to find a coach for them, or I'll have people send me swing videos and try to help them that way. That's actually one thing that I do with not all of my students, but the majority of my students, is I'll give them my phone number, because, there's nothing worse than like having a day off and somebody hits you up and they're like, hey, I got the shanks. Do you have a lesson tomorrow? And you're like, well, I can't help you with that. I say, send me a swing video. Like, I really think I can solve your problem from here. And that's, I'll show you guys, like I said, in a minute, how I kind of break down swings and swing videos and whatnot. How's Bill Loeffler and how much influence did he have on you? Bill Loeffler, if you guys don't know, Colorado Golf Hall of Famer. He won the Colorado Open 3 times, I think. He said he was close to a 4th. He played in the Masters as a mid-am when he was like 38 or 40, I think. And he had a huge influence on my golf career. He had a huge influence on my life. Billy hired me in 2015 at the Links Golf Course. Him and Sandy Loeffler had a huge influence on my life as well. They hired me at the Links, and I always tell the story. We've talked about mentorship a lot in the section lately, which I love. I've been very fortunate in my life to have really influential mentors around me. I remember being at level 1 seminar, and the only thing I took from that seminar is that the keynote speaker, the entire week, he probably said it 50 times. He said, you need to find a mentor. You guys need to go out and find a mentor. And I was sitting there like, how do I just find a mentor? Like, do I go to a phone book and like mentor? Like, no, like, how do you do that? So I was really confused when I left the seminar. And then the next week I started my job at the Links. Bill and Sandy hired me. Jason Brandt was the head professional. Rob Hunt was Jason was the GM. Rob Hunt was the head pro. Kyle Voska was the director of instruction. And so a couple months later, I was sitting there and I was like, that's what it means. Like, I fell into these amazing mentors. And I think you never know who your next golf connection is going to be. You never know who your next boss is going to be. You never know who your next playing partner is going to be that could potentially be your mentor, and so you just kind of have to study your surroundings. And like I said, I've been incredibly fortunate to have people like Bill Loeffler in my life. He's doing great. Last time I saw him was at the BMW at Castle Pines, because they live up there. But yeah, Billy's fantastic. Thanks, Scott. Let's see. Jeff McNair has raised his hand. Jeff, what do you got, man?
Hey, Jeremy, thanks for doing this, man. So I got a question really for the group, I guess. So, and it's a golf swing position thing. So I coach a lot of high school players, which is fantastic. I started coaching. So a lot of these kids that were 7 years old are now 17 years old and hitting at 340. And the pattern that I notice is a lot of these kids, they're 8 degrees out and a lot of rotation and flip the crap out of it. It's not always hooky. It was earlier. But I guess as a coach that tends to be like a stick to finish kind of a guy as well, I guess I'm, aside from punch shots, which seems like an obvious answer, I guess I'm just kind of curious in terms of a long-term, how to get a player that's doing a lot of that rotation, how to start minimizing some of that so that it doesn't become a liability later on.
Great question.
And thanks for being here.
I appreciate it. And that's a good transition here. I've got a video queued up. I'm going to try to share my screen and see if I can walk through it. It's not a high school player, but some similarities there. It's a player that I think a lot of us have had. He's kind of pretty athletic guy, but he comes over the top. So Jeff, he's not into out 8 degrees, but the position I'm going to talk through in when I'm analyzing golf swings. So again, if somebody sends me their swing, or if I see a swing on the range, or I'm going back and analyzing, looking at video, there's a couple keys that I'm going to look at first and foremost, kind of those prerequisites. And then there's one like really technical piece in the takeaway that I'm always going to look at. And so let me see if I can queue up this video here. So I'll share my screen. Boom. Okay, can you guys see this? Somebody give me a yeah.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, thanks, Ollie. Okay, so first and foremost, I have this discussion with players often, and it gets somewhat frustrating for them, because the first question I ask this guy is, I say, David, where's your target? And he tells me it's this, flag out here. Or he might have even been aiming at the white flag on this one. But I say, David, your feet are 20 yards right of where your target is. And it's something that we work on pretty much every session. And he goes, gosh, how could I be doing that? How could I every time? How can my feet be aimed to the right every time? And, there's a lot of reasons. Eye dominance, again, you're facing 90 degrees away from your target. It's hard to do that. But I just try to reiterate how important alignment is. And Dave Pell's called them flow lines: feet, knees, hips, shoulders. If you can get all those things lined up and pointed towards the target, good things happen. The club flows that direction. So David comes over the top, and I think a lot of that stems from the fact that he's aimed so far right, because your body's very smart. And if it knows that you're not trying to hit it over here. It knows that you're trying to hit it straight. So it's going to counteract. So he's aimed right, but his body wants to swing left because of that. And so that's one of the biggest things that I try to get him to work on and understand. Again, like, good players work on their alignment so much, so he's in good positions here. And then his body knows, like, if it follows his flow lines, he's going to hit it 30 yards right of his target. And so his body goes, okay, we're going to go left from here. And so, always trying to get people to focus on the fundamentals first. So he uses a lot of alignment sticks. I'm like, we've got to get those feet and those knees and those hips and those shoulders pointed in the direction we want to go. Now, that's just like raw fundamental number one. Back to kind of answering Jeff's question. This position right here, in the takeaway, I think it's P2, if you're getting real technical with it, is the position that I have found the most success throughout my career in getting players to focus on. Again, this is kind of that piece that if I see something wrong with someone's backswing, I'm going to address it. But again, at the end of the day, I want them as focused on the target as they can possibly be. But this position right here, where the club's parallel to the ground, we want that club face to match the spine angle. So his face is a little open here. And that's probably the position that I get my high school players, my junior players, really anyone to focus on the most. And so we can come back to this, but let me see if I can get back to stop presenting. Boom. Okay, I'm going to put a club in my hands and break this takeaway piece down for you guys a little bit more, if that's all right. We'll do it with the driver. Okay, so this right here, that position is crucial. I tell people, if you can start the swing in a good spot and you can finish in a good spot, good things are going to happen. But a lot of times they'll either get that club way inside in that takeaway position, or they'll be way outside in that takeaway position. And if you don't hit that spot, I think you have to do a lot of manipulation throughout the swing. So it's going to be easier if we can get the club in a good takeaway position. And so it's really easy for a lot of players to relate to that, because I'll ask them, I'll say, if you watch golf on TV, how many players do that check before they hit a golf shot? Justin Thomas, kind of famously, Ludwig Oberg, Jason Day, Xander Schauffele, they all do that sort of check where they, before they hit their shot, they check that position right there. What are they looking for? They're looking where the club's parallel to the ground. They want to see two things. They want to see that the shaft is pointed towards the target and the club face matches their spine angle for the most part. And so if I can get a player to pass the club through that position, good things happen. And so, like, Jeff, back to your point of if you get somebody trying to draw it too much, like, you know, a lot of young players or you know, anybody that's suffered from the slice, they want to draw it and they'll start bringing it way into out. And they think like that's, but if you think about 8 degrees or 10 degrees, that's such a huge room for error, right? Your dispersion is going to be huge at 8 degrees into out. And so I'll put an alignment stick down and I'll try to get them moving towards the target more. But to dive into this takeaway piece a little bit more, it's the one piece that it's the one technical piece that I'll really share with anyone. I don't care what level of player they are. Anyone can grasp this. And it goes back to like defining certain things like the swing plane. Like, what is that? What does that mean? And you can break that thing down from this position. And it's universal. There's not a ton of things in this game that are universal, but this position is. And so that's why guys like Ludwig Oberg, Justin Thomas, that's why they check this piece before they hit every single golf shot. And that's not a bad idea, because golf is a sport that allows you that opportunity. If that's in your routine, is to make sure your club's going to pass through the right position. So I'll grab another club here. If I've got my 60-degree wedge, which is my shortest club, versus my driver, which is my longest club, they both have different shaft angles. And the shaft angle is basically the swing plane. I'm trying to maintain that shaft angle. But the nice thing about this takeaway piece is it's the same with every club. I want to start the swing in this parallel position where the butt of the club is pointed towards the target, and the club face is somewhere around my spine angle, matching my spine angle, right? So I don't want to toe up in this takeaway is actually open, which some people need. Slower swing speeds need to be more toe up in this position, but faster swing speeds can be more closed here, right? The more speed you have, the more closed you can be in this takeaway position. But understanding where the club is here is really important. And again, it's because every club is going to pass through that takeaway position. So if you can start the swing in a good spot, you're kind of on autopilot from there, and then you can just take it to a good finish position. So that's always one that I'm going to try to give to, like I said, any level of player, to get them to understand the swing and the positions of the golf club a little bit more, is that takeaway piece. And it's really easy to find online. It's really easy, like every weekend, if you watch golf or you have your players watch golf, have them take a look at that specific thing, because so many players do it. They take the club to that spot. Butch Harmon is one that really gets. That's where I get this from. Is Butch Harmon would get his players to do that a lot. I was reading articles, Golf Digest back in the day, and Butch was really breaking that down. And so, like I said, it's just a really easy piece for people to understand if they want to get a little bit more technical with their understanding of how the club moves in space. So I hope that answered your question, Jeff. If I've got a high school player that's trying to do too much with a shot, I want them to get to there, because that's going to get them more neutral. And then if I get them more neutral, and they're not swinging in to out so much or out to in so much, then I can actually teach them how to shape the ball easier. It's hard to shape the ball if your path is going one direction or the other. You're pretty much only going to have one shape. If you get neutral, now you can hit the ball straight. And then if you can hit the ball straight, it's really easy to teach you how to draw it and then fade it, because basically how Tiger explains it is off your flow lines. If I want to curve the ball to the left, my feet are going to be right and my club face is going to be close, right? My club face is going to be where the ball ends and my foot line is going to be where the ball starts. So if I want to fade it, we open our feet, so the ball is going to start left, but our club face stays at the target and it's going to go back to the right. So if I can get a player to neutral and get them to understand that takeaway piece, now I can really get them more excited, because then I can get them hitting different shots. And when you see that light bulb come on in somebody's head, when they hit a proper draw, or then they'll hit a couple draws and then I ask them to hit one straight, or then I ask them to hit a fade and they can actually do it. That's when you've really got a player hooked. And if you can get them hooked like that, because they're striking the ball in ways that they've always wanted to, that's when it's really fun for them and really fun for you as a coach as well. Yeah, great question. Love that. Cool. Nobody else in the comments. Let's see. So that's, as far as swing changes go, that's kind of the main things I'm looking for. If you don't mind, I'll go back to this video real quick, because I do have an over the topper that I think a lot of us get. Jeff's question was more, for a high school player trying to, hit big draws and stuff like that. But let me go back to this video here real quick and show you guys the number one thing that I think helps players that I've seen stop coming over the top, and helps a couple other things as well. So let me go back to this. Here. Okay, so David's good takeaway position. Holly, can you see this again? Just give me a.
Yep, I got you.
Thanks. Good takeaway position here. Club's just a hair open because it's toe up, right? And then still on playing pretty well here. The butt of the club's pointed back towards the golf ball in that kind of 3/4 position, which is what you're looking for. But then from here, the hands kick out and the shaft stands up. We see this a lot, right? That over the top move, that's pretty classic right there. And the main thing that happens here that I see is that the hands are going away from the body. So that separation right here of the hands. So a player like this is going to struggle with heel shanks, right? Because the hands are moving away from the body. And what is that doing? That's exposing the hosel. The heel is moving closer to the golf ball. So there's two things that I'll try to do with a player that's getting, over the top, is I'll literally grab the club. I'll have them take it to the top and I'll grab the club here and just try to get them to feel. I'll like shallow the club for them just to get their hands to feel what it feels like to shallow the club. And then, the towel drill of like putting a towel on your back and almost doing like a lat pull down. I want those hands. David's hands don't move from this position. It's all body rotation. He's not swinging the club. His body is just rotating to the left, and that's what's getting the club down. So we need his hands from this position to be coming down and not going out as much. So that there's a towel drill where you put the towel on your back and kind of pull it down. I want his hands to start moving the club from the top and pulling the club down a little bit better. And then the drill that I'll do with a player like this, or guys, this is for anyone that's got hosel rockets or heel shanks. That's, when somebody hits one of those, not only is it jarring for them, obviously, as the golfer, but for us as an instructor, that heel shank comes out and you're like, oh shoot. And so fortunately for me, I had a buddy that really struggled with these. And so me trying to help him out, was what got me to understand that this specific move and this specific drill helps the most with a player that's hitting them off the heel, off the hosel. And it's trying to keep your hands in. So I'll grab a club again. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll hold something right here in front of them. And I'm trying to get their hands to stay inside of the object that I'm holding here, whether it's, alignment sticks, or I'll just put a club right there. I want to see, right? Because from here, their hands are going this way, right? That's that over the top. That's that heel shank move. I want their hands to be moving down and staying in. And the nice thing about this is what I found is it forces the body to rotate better. So you're going to get, bang for your buck with this drill. You're killing two birds with one stone. Your body is going to be forced to rotate, and your hands are going to be forced to stay in, which now isn't going to expose the hosel to the golf ball. If my hands are going out, the hosel is getting closer to the ball, and that's devastating, right? Can we keep the hands in, and can we keep the hosel from moving that way? Can we almost get the hosel moving this way, right? And so that hands in move is probably the number one that I use when I get a player that starts hitting them off the heel too far or hitting them off the hosel. I found a lot of success with those two things specifically. That takeaway, where's the club in the takeaway, and can I get your hands in? Because I think it does a lot of good stuff for the golf swing. So those are kind of my two big fixes for things that I've seen a lot throughout my career. Yeah, so a couple more minutes. Let's see. Scott, any suggestions for a player that uses a lot of bowed wrist like DJ? What are the effects, results of a very bowed wrist, and should it be adjusted or changed? So great question. Back to the point of that takeaway position. That's one where you can really kind of see that bowed wrist here, and DJ's down here, so that at the top he's real bowed. You have to be a player that has a lot of speed if you get that bowed wrist. So it's interesting because what you actually see a lot of times is high school age or junior girls, they get that bowed wrist a lot, and they get their club face really closed there. And it's tough for them because they don't have enough speed to be effective from that position. Because if the club face is that close, you need a lot of speed to get height on the golf ball. Otherwise, the ball is not going anywhere, and it's going to go left a lot. So there's benefits of that. Yeah, right. He says he sees ladies do that, and it seems like they're losing distance. And the reason they're losing distance is because the ball's not in the air long enough. They don't have enough loft on their club face. So that's actually somebody, again, I'll go back to that takeaway position, and I want to see if they can feel where their hands are and where the club head is in that position. I want to see if they can go from here to toe up, because now the wrist isn't going to be bowed as much. There's actually going to be a little bit more freedom in the hands that way, right? Why can DJ do that? Well, his body rotates so well. He can keep the wrist bowed here and get to the top. But if you keep the wrist bowed here and you don't move the body, you're not going anywhere, right? So if I can get a player to go more toe up, especially a player that doesn't have a lot of speed, if I can get them to go toe up here, well, now they're actually going to use that lever, their wrist action, a little bit more effectively and get more speed that way. So again, that's where I like going back to this takeaway position. And for different players, you can tweak that a little bit, like a doorknob here, right? Do I want you more closed because you're too open and you're hitting them right? Or do I want you more open because you're too closed here and you're hitting them low and left a lot? So I go back to that takeaway piece a lot. Is probably the number one technical piece that I really use. Difficult for players to adjust. Yeah, absolutely. So buckets work pretty well there. That knob analogy that I just gave you, just put the club there and see if they can feel the club head moving a little bit. Do it in isolation, right? Why does Justin Thomas check that before every single swing? Because it's important. So if I can get a player to do that before every swing, I think they're going to have more success. Buckets work well, right? Trying to get the bucket here. Not a lot of young people have service industry experience, but if you can get somebody to feel like they're holding the platter as they're coming back, that one kind of helps too. But yeah, it's difficult to make any adjustment, really, I think. And so trying to isolate those pieces like that takeaway, I think that's why you see some of those players do it. And something I tell people a lot is you should watch what the best players do, because there's a roadmap for you. They've been through it and they figured it out what the best way is to feel where the club is. And so watch golf on TV and look how perfect their alignment is, because they focus on it so much. And look how many players check their takeaway before every shot, and look at every golf swing that you see on TV, and there's different ways of getting there, but they all have that perfect finish position. Even Scotty, he's balanced in his finish. His feet are moving, but he's balanced in his finish. So if we can start the club in the right spot and we can get to a good finish, good things are going to happen. I say that a lot. That's why I've said it, several times throughout what we've talked about this morning. So I think we got a few minutes left. I want to be respectful of your guys' time. I've loved doing this. Obviously, I love talking golf. If anybody ever has any questions about any of what we talked about today or anything else regarding golf, please reach out. Let me know. Any other questions before we wrap this thing up, or anybody got anything else? Nice. Makes me feel good. Feel like I got it done. Guys, that was super fun. Holly, thank you for putting that together. Like I said, please, anybody, if you need anything, let me know. Rick, what's up?
Just quick question. For another beginner question.
Yeah.
What kind of tips or drills would you have for like an extreme, like never been on a putting green, never really gotten into golf? What kind of drills or tips would you have for them?
Good question. I like things to transfer. And so as far as like drilling goes, I'd rather somebody take one golf ball to the putting green and play 9 holes, right? Because that's going to gamify your practice. I can say, okay, instead of taking 3 balls to the putting green, I don't think that's a very effective way to practice your putting personally, because you never get that luxury on the course, right? So I'll have a player take 1 ball to the putting green and just go putt. If they're struggling with short putts, I'll set them up on a perfectly flat or perfectly straight putt and just see if they can hit 3 or 5 footers. Because then again, they can work on their start line. If you can start the ball and make 3 footers that are perfectly straight, then you know that your setup is really good. If you can't, then you know that your setup needs to be adjusted, because if you're pushing them or you're pulling them, ball position, things like that. If you can't make a straight 3-footer, you can sit there and really kind of figure out what different ways to adjust your setup to make the ball go in the hole. So I like gamifying things for people. I'll tell them to bring their wedge and the putter to the chipping green and go play 9 holes and keep score. And can you 2-putt every time, or can you get up and down 4 or 5 times out of 9 or whatever? Because what it does is then they're going to have their baseline or their course record and try to beat that every time. For putting, the best drill, again, a Harvey Penick one, is 3, 5, 7. You set up a mark at 3 feet, 5 feet, 7 feet, and you have to make 3 in a row from each spot. So the easy way to do it is just use those as checkpoints. The hard way to do it is you have to make 9 putts in a row. And again, that's a really good one to add pressure, because if you make 3 in a row from 3 feet and then you're at the 5-footer and then you've made 4, 5, 6 putts in a row, you get back to the 7-footer and you start to feel pressure, because if you miss, you have to start back over at the 3-footer. That's probably my favorite putting drill. Harvey Penick said he used that with his University of Texas team for 35 years. And he would make his players do that drill every day after practice before they could come to the mess hall for dinner. He said a lot of them went hungry because they couldn't complete that drill because they weren't very good at putting. But that's probably the best putting drill that I know.
Thanks, Jeremy.
You bet. Sean, Rick, thanks, guys. Everybody else, thanks for being here. There's no more questions in the comments. So, yeah, that was fun.
Thanks, Jeremy.
You bet.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Jeremy. That was amazing. Great job.
Thanks, Ollie. Thanks for setting it up. Yeah, we'll do it again in the future.
Love that.
All right. See you guys later.